Alex,
yeah.
what about that question on Medvedev? Do you think he's a good man?
Medvedev and totalitarianism. Medvedev clearly chosen by Putin, protege, close friend, and all the prognostications, particularly with Russia, that there will be increasing conflict, strains, there are all sorts of conspiracy theories. Wrong, they cooperate, they're a pair. But that does not mean to say either that you expect radical change. That is naive if anyone did expect any change. But I think there's a distinction between the kind of division of labour they have. I think Putin is more concerned with the hardline control, now economy, administrative tasks. Medvedev is generally more concerned with actually trying to get a bit more talent into the system, trying to get a few more rules, not rule of law in the sense we understand it at all, but trying to get the place run in a more effective way. And therefore, not all the noise about corruption being an endemic problem and so on, and the greatest problem they face. It is because it's uncontrolled and unmanaged corruption. I mean, you know, corruption can actually help the system, it can also hinder it if you can't actually control and manage it. So I think Medvedev is certainly junior, there's no question about that. But I think he has a sphere of operations which is distinct, increasingly from that of Putin. Interesting that Putin didn't come to G20. He could have quite legitimately come to G20 since it's about economics. But he wants to build up the image, at least, that this man as the president. It's a very, very junior presidency, but nevertheless there is a bit. Further on from that, differentiation, coming to the point, of course there's a lot of differentiation within the elite. This is the ruling, governing elite of the whole state. And it's an elite which is full of talent, but it's also full of loyalty, it's full of corruption, and therefore there's a worry that hasn't got enough talent to it. Calling it totalitarian is in a way over-strategizing the whole thing. You know, it's giving it the extreme label. I mean, beyond that, where do you go? If it's a totalitarian, it's a fairly chaotic form of authoritarianism. I mean, it's not a very effective form. They're trying to make it a more effective authoritarian system. It's not anything to do with democracy as we understand it, because the only understanding of democracy is something that top-down choice is imposed rather than bottom-up. I once contributed a book years ago called Elections Without Choice, which seemed a bit of an odd time. But that's what they're really after. But running elections is a way of testing the machine. It was in all the major communist states, it still is in China, and then you test how much individual choice you can have. But calling totalitarian is putting it in the wrong category. It's nasty, it's brutal, it has a lot of intimidation, but it's fragmented, it's incoherent, and it hasn't got the mobilizing ideology which you associate with totalitarianism.
Mark, the last question on criminal syndicate for the purpose, also your man Pavlovsky.
It's not mine.
It's being a crazy It's being a return to Stalinism by writing against Memorial's offices in December in Petersburg were raided. What do you think of that?
I mean, as I said, I find these things completely shocking and I mean horrifying. Particularly, I mean, I come from, my mother is German Jew, so the whole question of memory, managed memory, and how you deal with these things is something which is kind of central to my family's history, and these sorts of things are obviously not things and they are things which have to be taken very, very seriously. I agree with Alex Pravda that this isn't a totalitarian regime. What it is an adaptive authoritarianism. It's an extremely flexible, pragmatic. It is a bit messy, but they're very good at trying to understand and to preempt public opinion and to try and crystallise the public mood. And actually, Putin's power has has certainly been supported by brutal and unpleasant techniques in all sorts of different ways across different bits of society. But it's not primarily been supported by its brutality. It has also been supported by these other techniques. Oil has certainly helped, but we're going to see, I mean, I think now is really the critical period. We're going to see how it survives with oil prices at the level they're at the moment rather than at the level that they were at before. But I think one of the reasons that it's been quite successful is because it's not your father's authoritarianism. It really isn't like Stalin. It's a different, much more pragmatic type of authoritarianism that uses a lot of the things which modern political parties use in democracies in order to entrench their power.
I think that's the two things the KGB learned from the collapse of the Soviet Union, was that planned economies don't work and that one-party states don't work. And I suppose mildly encouraged them that they've learned that, but they haven't learned the important thing.
We should not make this into an elite conversation. We go on to the people. We have another 10 minutes. Who else wishes to come in? Christine, anybody else? Christine. Anybody else, please? Sure.
In the New Cold War, which I have to read more than once, there is talk of mystical nationalism that Putin had very cleverly whipped up in Russia in order to seize the people's consciousness much more. Do the three other panelists think that mystical nationalism is a factor in Russian politics right now?
This is the three other than your husband.
Yes. Yes.
Who wants to come in? I'm always starting with you, but if you're ready, go ahead.
Yes, I think the frightening thing is that I think we're going to be seeing very much more mystical nationalism because it's the last refuge of scoundrels and the patriotism. I think it's rather pathetic. I mean, to admirers of Lev Pavlovsky may find it impressive that these sort of rather tired nationalist cliches of the Soviet era have been sort of dusted off and thrown into the breach to justify the regime's survival and to justify its foreign policy adventures. But actually, there's nothing really new under the sun in terms of the regime's rhetoric. And the only unusual thing is that they've actually sort of compiled a smorgasbord of Russian ideologies reaching back before the revolution, but of course Stalin did that as well. He reached back to the memory of Alexander Nevsky and even on bizarrely Ivan Terrible. But there was the mystical nationalism is clearly a very dangerous Pandora's box. It exists slightly strangely hand in hand with a sort of politically correct attempt at creating an idea of the Russian multinational empire. So in a series of recent films, most notably the unmissable 1612, which was created last year to explain the creation of a new November national holiday to commemorate the liberation of Moscow from the Polish occupation in 1612. There's this very odd sort of buddy, it's a kind of buddy movie set in 1612, where the three buddies are a Russian, a Spaniard, bizarrely, and a Tatar. But it's all about the Tatar Russian sort of buddy team save Moscow. So clearly there's an attempt to it's not simply great Russian nationalism sort of as out of the Nicholas II sort of playbook. It's slightly more complicated, but none the more coherent or none the less sinister for it.